The time is now 11 minutes to 7. Britain could slash net migration by more than 100,000 if it were to leave the European Union. That's what the pressure group Migration Watch UK is claiming. Lord Green is its chairman. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Does this mean you're pro or anti?
No, we as Migration Watch are not advocating either leaving or staying. We recognise that there are a whole range of considerations in this question, and people will, I think, wait till they see what the deal is and make up their minds. So immigration is one issue. It's an important issue, but it's certainly not the only one.
How do you come by this figure, 100,000?
Well, what we wanted to do was to look at what might be an alternative immigration system if we were to leave the European Union. At the moment, you've got one side saying we have to retain free movement, the other side saying, oh, we don't need to do that. But nobody has actually looked at what it might be if we were to leave. So what we did, and the crux of this, would be to introduce work permits for EU citizens, just as there are work permits now for non-EU citizens. And if you set the criteria for those work permits the same as they are now today for non-EU citizens, the effect of that would be that you would reduce the migration from European countries by about 120,000 a year.
But obviously we don't know that that's what would happen.
Well, we do, in the sense that they could only come here and work if they had a work permit. What we would also...
Well, they might be given a special status. I mean, one doesn't know how it would work out, does one?
Oh, no, that's true. But I mean, what we're setting out here is what a negotiating objective would be. And the objective would be to introduce those work permits, but at the same time to say, and this is important, that EU migrants will be entirely welcome to come here for tourism, for study, to live here if they wanted to. It's the work route that we need to clamp down on, because roughly 3/4 of EU migrants come here to take jobs that are low paid. They may be quite skilled, some of them, but actually the jobs they take are low paid, and therefore their contribution to the economy is very limited. But it's the numbers of the problem. And EU migration is now nearly half of the 330. So this will be a big hit. It's not enough of its own. We'd have to do things on non-EU. But it will be a big hit in terms of getting the numbers down, which is frankly what everybody wants to see.
But might the whole picture change so radically as a result of this massive migration, assuming it continues this year, as it did last year, of course? Might it change everything?
Yes, it might. I mean, it might change the entire European Union, yes. I think for the moment that is highly speculative, but I think it adds to the case for examining more widely what the possibilities might be in some future situation.
And that might be what? I mean, you must have done a bit of blue skies thinking on this.
Well, the European Union is badly stuck in relation to the huge flow of migrants from the Middle East, and the Middle East is badly stuck, as I know, as well as most.
Because you were an ambassador.
I was an ambassador in Syria and also in Saudi Arabia. It's extraordinarily hard to see how we could reach a modus vivendi in Syria. Hard to see how the fighting can be unwound. And therefore I think it's very likely that there will continue to be movement, certainly out of Syria. I think the only way forward is to look for ways of accommodating in much better circumstances people in the countries around Syria, because that in the long term, as we've always found, in the long term, it makes it easier for people to go back to their own countries, their own communities, their own language, eventually. But eventually, I'm afraid, is the word.
There is clearly a moral obligation on every prosperous country certainly in the European Union. All countries are relatively prosperous compared to the places they've come from, and especially this country, we have a moral obligation.
Yes, I accept that. And the more so because we have been involved in military action in the Middle East on several occasions, which I deeply oppose, but nonetheless it is a moral obligation. And that obliges us to do in effect what we're doing. We've given £1 billion. It's a hell of a lot of money to help the refugees, and so we should. But I don't think that is going to directly affect the question of movement from the EU 26 to the UK if we were to leave. I think there will have to be a negotiation, There'll be a lot of aspects to that negotiation. The background to it that you've just touched on, of course, will be very important. But what we've identified here, it seems to me, is something that we could be seeking to achieve if it happens that we vote against and if we come to this negotiation.
Lord Green, many thanks.